Good evening. I'd like to open the February 6, 2023 meeting of the Hampden Board of Selectmen. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. This meeting is being held live, broadcast over Zoom, and being recorded. Is there anyone else recording this meeting? Okay, seeing none. First item on the agenda is the minutes of January 9th, the executive session.
I'll move to approve January 9th executive session minutes.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Then we have the minutes of January 30th. Wow. Wow. Must have been a slow week. Well done.
Under the police sergeant's exam, I think it was the recommendation of the testers to have 70%. I think we mentioned that. Not that we just set it at 70. I think that was the recommendation.
I would also make the point that, the last time, it says here, one time it was set at 60. Yeah, one time. But the last time it was 70. So I don't want people to think we're bumping it from what it had been. So if we can make that clear somehow that the current level has been 70 and the board feels it should continue to be that way based on the recommendation of the testing agency.
Yeah, whoever the agency was,
Right.
they sent us that document.
Yeah, that way. We want to make sure that we've been consistent with 70. Yes. Thank you. Thank you. Signify by raising your hand. Entertain a motion with those changes.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Doug's here.
There you are. Carol coming? Yes. Okay. Okay, well, we'll wait for the, there she is, okay. You betcha. Matter of fact, we brought you snacks.
I was gonna say, you baked? John, you baked?
Yes, we have cookies for you.
Well, since he's retired, he has more time, so let's, yeah. You can turn that on, it might be working, it might not.
Would you say you ate all the good ones?
Yeah, we did, yeah.
Where's the broken one, do you know? Oh, okay. So we're off, we don't have to lecture anymore, basically, okay. Can we order extra, or we got this?
I think we could order individually, yeah.
Okay. Didn't know if it was limited to a maximum or so many. Okay, great. Okay, so we have the advisory committee, most of them with us. I don't know if any are online. Yes, I see Kathy. Is that Ed? Kathy, is that you? Might be. And so, welcome. First off, before we start the meeting, you can see near Carol, we have a delicious assortment of cookies, and we'd like to thank Village Food Mart Armadas for supplying that to us today. Thank you very much for that. So, advisory. We have asked you for a recommendation and a discussion with our board if there is a COLA needed to the budget for town employees for next year.
Well,
Due process.
I wish we could say no.
Okay,
But,
so moved.
But we discussed this last week, actually. We had some difference of opinion among ourselves, but we came to the agreement that the number that we would support and recommend, frankly, is 4%. You can take issue with that, either up or down, but I think it's fair to say that we all believe that the inflation has been such that most likely everybody's been affected to at least the 4% range. So
Did you have any kind of sense of what that would mean in terms of a impact to the budget? Well, obviously, we're talking the non-bargain town employees.
yeah, we do have the,
4%, just a little over $46,000.
All right, and that also doesn't take into account any steps that may or may not be. Okay.
Does that 46,000, does that include like the increase in Medicare payments and
entirely salary,
the salary?
just the salary lines.
And of course, the following year, Don, that would have a snowball effect in the retirement. number,
Retirement
correct?
number, right?
Yeah, they all ripple through.
Right.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I think it's consistent with how we approached things last year. Last year, we did a 5%. And, we were worried inflation was
Mhm.
higher. We looked at some of the projections through March and feel like that's a good number.
Mhm.
And Carol, use the microphone so we're recording this.
Sorry, no, I was just saying that, I think it's consistent with our approach to last year, looking at the inflation. Last year, we were able to get 5%. 4%, I think, still helps with the factor of inflation, but also helps to keep our salaries competitive, which is one of the things that we're very worried about because we are so person dependent.
Well, I think it's obvious that working with the advisory over the past, I'm going to say 5-6 years, we've made a great effort in bringing the town employee salaries up to an equitable position. There was a couple of years where we did the 4 and 4, and I would hope that right now we are pretty competitive with other opportunities at this point, either public or private. So you think, and of course, obviously you have a presence in the, in the outside world, if you will, in the public or the private workplace, you think this is something that's consistent with what you see out there?
Numbers all over the place.
It's, to say, I see everything. It's,
Right.
I've been still calling it the Wild West out there. But I think that, this is a solid number. I think it's, above some, below others, but I think that, it keeps us in the game.
Mhm, mhm. Explain to me, if you would, the step thing. Who gets a step this year and who doesn't? You said this is on top of any projected step, but not everybody gets a step
Every other year.
Every other year.
every other year? Okay, thank you. All right. So you couldn't give that could be half the people, it could be six, whichever, depending on when they came in and when they were on. Dick has something to say?
You get a step every 2 years, and a step is worth 2%.
Mhm.
So a step is basically, it's a longevity,
Right.
seniority payment. So for the math purposes, you figure it's going to cost you 1% a year if we don't have any employee turnover.
Mm-hmm. Average it out, basically. Right, okay. And judging by what you're saying right here, if you're saying 4%, you're saying the average 1% is in the 12 to 15% of the non-bargain employees. You estimated the 4% to be a $46,000 hit. So judging 1% is in the, say, $12,000 range. Yeah, okay, all right.
1%, and again, it's just on.
No, so I go back to
Yeah,
Dick's
yeah.
point there, if the step thing, you're saying every year, the step increase, you could average it out to $12,000 to $15,000 a year at the 1% average.
Assuming no employee turnover.
Right. And of course, we have our own concern with a potential bargaining of a contract. I believe Bob is coming back to us with I don't want to say certified number, but a number we were looking for the regional CPI as of February 1st. And if it hits a certain target, we would consider reopening the contract to look at possibly modifying the negotiated raise.
Who calculates the regions?
It's all done by the federal government. And actually, Mark and I brought it up today on the web. It's the Greater Springfield and Northern Connecticut CPI. So you have for the whole state, and you have for the regions within the state.
One thing is you want to take into consideration the CPI versus wage increase. You know, the quick Googling I did, we had a CPI increase of 7.1, but a national wage increase of only 5.1. So that's kind of why I like the 4% number with a step that was right in line with wage growth.
Okay.
CPI is a little too volatile, I think.
Would you say, and if I go back to the financial team, you know, you and Cliff, are you in line with advisor's recommendation? 4%? Cliff? Or as well?
They were at our meeting last week and we talked about it.
Just trying to get it on record,
Yep.
so, okay.
And we did look, we did look at inflation numbers and projections for inflation and for wage increases as Dick's talking about. So we did both of those.
Okay. This is something that's important for our board to come forward with as our different departments need to start creating their budgets. Craig, Don, any questions for
No.
advisor?
No, not really.
We're good.
All right, do you think we're ready to vote a recommended COLA boards to use in their budget?
Painful as it is, I'll make a motion that we accept the advisory committee's recommendation of 4%.
Second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So, Bob, you'll put that message out to everybody preparing their budgets tomorrow, please. Okay.
Well, thank you for that. I mean, believe me, we wrestle with these issues. It's a matter of being fair to employees and being fair to taxpayers. We hope this is the right balance.
And we want to be clear, it doesn't affect your salary because you know.
Oh, no.
We get paid in cookies.
There you go, take them
some
with you.
cookies.
How many departments are you meeting with tonight, by the
I
way?
need about 12 more of those plates.
Who are you meeting with tonight?
Planning, cemetery, and Parks and Rec.
Action-packed evening.
Yeah.
There you
It's
go.
gonna be exciting down in the Melville room.
Good luck.
Right.
Thank
Thank you all. Okay, next on the agenda is, it's written as extension of the contract with Action Ambulance, but the agenda item I had asked Bob to put on there was really a discussion of the ambulance contract. There was no request for a vote or anything like that, so.
Yeah, you have to, I know, you do.
Is that on your plan?
Yeah, the chemo, I have to eat.
Oh,
like all the time.
So take two.
Medical
Take two.
necessity.
Take two.
take two. Thank you. Thank you.
Take two.
So basically, a discussion of where we are with the ambulance contract was the goal of this agenda item. So I'm going to open it up to our board for a discussion. So, Greg, you had a little history. Don, you had some comments you wanted to make, and we're at the point where I'm not sure we have a really good grasp of performance in the past year.
I think before we decide on any contract, we need to look and evaluate what's worked and what hasn't. And I think Don's made a great point in the past of saying that, what we have is far better than what we had in the past before that. So that we kind of know what's working because it's better than what we've had. With that said, there's definitely been some hiccups along the way. And I think before we consider an extension, we need to hash out some of that contract lingo that is either open-ended or hasn't worked out to our favor as a town, left us vulnerable. So I think, those are discussions we need to be having right now as far as performance goes, and evaluations.
Yeah, if I can expand upon that, only because, having been here longer, what we had in the past didn't necessarily not work. We had a contract with AMR at $0. Because of their business model, they weren't able to give performance. It degraded because they weren't close. We did see response times where we needed to be, which was in the 5, as they were stationed just outside of town. But when they got away from that because of their business problems, that's when the board decided to go looking for a better solution. When they started dropping into the 12 to 15-minute response times, that was not acceptable. for the town of Hampton.
Some were 20
At that
minutes
point,
more.
at that point, even the $0 thing
Yeah.
wasn't a good trade-off. Prior to that, $0 was a good budget.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we certainly encourage anyone bidding on the ambulance with a $0 would be fine too. Right? It's a floor,
Long as it's
maybe the
stationed,
ceiling
long as it's stationed in town, they can do 24/7, 365
for
for zero.
For zero. And cookies.
ALS too.
Yeah.
There you go, yeah.
So what are the contract issues?
So basically, I think, have we had a really good report of their performance in the past year? I mean, the oversight, that's their job to, look at what happened. I really didn't see a lot of that in the last meeting. That there was talk of, where we,
Well, we know what the issues are. That up until probably July of this year, of the 2022, they were performing, I don't know if there was any times when the for ALS or BLS, any hiccups, there were some reporting issues, but they were able to work on that. I think there's a big discussion about ALS and BLS, and I think it's very important for people to understand that if you call the ambulance, it's gonna come. Doesn't mean if they're not on ALS, it's not gonna come. They are gonna come, and they do. And they come within 5.19 minutes. And over the course of the contract so far, I think off the top of my head, there's been 1,590 calls, responses, and 1,059 transports. So that's a pretty good record. We also know that all across the board, Massachusetts and nationally, that there's a real problem with paramedics and EMTs. First of all, they don't pay them enough, and secondly, of all, people who dropped out of it after the pandemic. And Action is feeling that. I just saw in the Boston Globe 4 days ago that Cataldo, because of their shortage, had to take 30 ambulances off the road.
no,
So, and they've had, and the same thing with they're having, I know in the Holyoke that they've gotten the Holyoke contract, but they were supposed to transition in 30 days and it's been 6 months. They haven't fully transitioned yet. So it's staffing all over.
Just out of curiosity, Dan, on that point, Cataldo is a for-profit business. How many municipal ambulance services have had to cut staffing? Do you know?
I don't know how to cut staffing, but I know that everyone is complaining about it. I mean, the Boston Fire Department, which runs their own, they're like 37 EMTs short. The other ones are too. I don't know if they cut back, but they're running into the same type of problem. Slow response times because they don't have the people and they don't have the right people on. And it's just it's a nationwide and it's a statewide problem. And I think Action has been pretty responsive to our concerns about that. I don't know, there's some reporting things that we've taken care of, they've worked on. Anytime we've called them that I know of, that we've contacted them for any kind of problem, they're very responsive. And they just don't send someone, the president of the company comes down, Mike Ronka comes down. So I think those things are issues,
but are we getting the best
and we-
bang for the buck?
Yeah, I think we are. We're good. I mean, if you think about it, it's basically $350,000, and we have 5,000 people in town, so it's $70 a year. We have 1,800 taxpayers. That comes to about 53 cents a day per taxpayer.
Just off the top of your head?
Just off the top of my head. For 24-hour day, 365 ambulance service. And I don't know if there's any better alternative out there right now, particularly, for just a 1-year extension. I mean, then we could take the year to look at what's going on every place else. Maybe things will improve. Maybe someone will come up with a better idea. I don't
We
know.
were informed recently that they've hired a third staffer. I think all the selectmen attended one of the meetings where they said they were hiring 2 more, Paris, and now they've hired a third one. So in that report that we got at the most recent ambulance advisory committee, they made the statement that there's a 40% reduction in the number of instances where they have to downshift to BLS.
Yeah.
So staffing is really the key there.
I think if we're going to look at any contract issue with them, I think we need to look at and this is on us, that we have to clarify for them exactly who they report to in a way. Is it the police chief or the fire chief? You know, there's still some confusion there, I think.
That leads me to one of my other questions is if we're looking at a contract extension, which contract are we looking at? I know there was the one that was signed originally in 2020 that listed the police chief. There was an amendment that was voted on by the select board, but nothing ever happened with it.
Nothing ever happened with that, no.
So are we still operating under the original
I
agreement?
think we're still operating under the original agreement because what happened with that is the police chief resigned and Farnsworth resigned and we just never did anything with it. I mean, I didn't sign it. We don't.
But it was I think Greg's point is it was a vote
Yeah,
authorizing
yeah,
and then
yeah.
no vote deauthorizing.
No one will de-authorize it.
Right. So kind of limbo.
Kind of limbo.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we could fix that ourselves.
At some point we should. I mean, I understand your point is that there may be options out there. We have an opportunity for a reasonable extension that's in line with our budget numbers at this
Yeah.
point. We could say there might be a cheaper option out there, but we don't know. You know, do we have time to look at that? Should we do this and do a deeper dive into it for the future? You know, see where we go. We talk about things, seriously, the municipal option is still on the table. Because people talked before about, oh my gosh, it would cost the town $1 million. Who's to say? Action doesn't do it for free. It costs them millions. It's the net that's the important number.
Except,
Like my dad used to say, municipal budgets, they don't have to make a profit.
Yeah.
Not like a private company does.
well, if you want to do municipal, then you're talking about right now for the 3 full-time people we have,
Mhm.
we're paying $176,000 a year, not including benefits.
No, I'm saying, it should be on the table if we go that
I
way.
just want to
for
go down the road.
options.
If now you'd have to add 12 people,
Mhm.
which would bring in about $1 million plus benefits. The fire chief commission said if you're going to have a full-time ambulance service, then you have to have a full-time fire chief, $100 and something thousand. We only have one ambulance, shaky at best. And right now, and no one in our department, only one person, full-time person is an EMT. The other 2 aren't. And we have to rely on call paramedics. So
I think that's part of our fault too. The select board has never given a direction to the fire department of how they see them fit in the EMS services. We've never physically said, we would like you to start operating as this particular level. So
they can't do it. They can't do it. They're not capable of doing it.
why are they not capable of doing it?
We don't have any ambulance. We don't have the trained people. It would take years to get us up to the
But we
thing.
do have an ambulance that is certified,
Right.
registered.
And the chief says if that ambulance is a BLS ambulance and that if it's an ALS call, they don't have the people to do it and they have to get an intercept. So you're waiting 10, 15 minutes for an intercept to come someplace.
How is that different than the way it's been
Yeah, right
operating
now.
right now?
The way it's operating right now is that 90% of the time they have an ALS ambulance there.
Right, but there are BLS times when they're BLS going to it.
So just on those
And
numbers
I thought
there.
BLS was like
Hold on.
the final
Basic.
run to the hospital. per se.
No.
So the BLS ambulance can transport to the hospital or get intercepted on the way to the hospital. If there is no ALS intercept available, the BLS continues its path to the hospital.
But we can't do it
Why can't we do it?
because the regulation says you have to have 2 EMTs on it and we only have 1.
At this current time, because we never given the direction to run that particular service. If we
Well,
were to-
if you want to run it up to $1 million, that's fine. I mean, you know.
I just want to, 2 points there that I'll hit on real quick. Since July
And
1st.
plus, we don't have the liability. If you look at the regulations, if you run a fire department thing, you have the liability if there's an accident or someone dies or something else.
So since July 1st, we've had BLS service in town 681 hours, which equates to 28 consecutive days since July 1st. So, and most of
What's
that
the percentage?
percentage, I think I might have that. You probably did the calculations. I don't have that one. I have a different percentage for something else. It's
So
total
you
responses.
feel that between now and July, ours fire department can be up and running with 24 hours, 7 days a week,
I didn't say
365?
that.
Oh, no, I didn't say that.
I didn't say that.
No, I didn't say that either. I'm saying that.
Well, we're
she hasn't
talking about an
taken-
extension.
I'm not talking about the extension right now. I'm saying in the future, I think that's an option to be explored. And I don't think the gross number should be just like you said, it's over $1 million. Sure. Action doesn't do it for free either.
Yeah, they
But
do it
it's
for
the net.
333,000.
That's their net. We're talking about their gross, they're operating
What
that
did they
ambulance in
take in
town
cash?
for,
Cash monies in 2022 was 854,000, I think. So they took it in cash.
I know,
balances.
but what does it cost them to operate that in
Correct.
town? Over $1 million,
So-
I'm sure.
My other question is, I found this on
So
OneDrive.
you feel that the town would be able to collect that money?
The towns do.
Yeah.
I'm not so sure they do.
And I would just,
Why, someone was adding a third.
Based
But
on that
we're getting
convers-
ahead of ourselves right now. That's,
yeah. But based on that conversation, municipal ambulance services around us are not losing money on ambulance service. They may not be making a huge profit, but they're not losing money. They're all able to sustain or refund their services through their
and expand.
So your feeling is that paying $333,000 for 24/7, 365 is losing money?
I'm saying there's always possibilities for options and looking at other alternatives.
But okay, now you're talking about expanding the fire department, buying another ambulance, $300,000, paying a fire chief $100 and something thousand a year, which would mean hiring a new fire chief.
There's other
probably.
options to those too. I mean, we have one here that was presented that never got mentioned was in 2019, a proposal by a firefighter at the time for per diem work.
Yeah, but
And at that
there again, that his thing was you would have coverage for 8 hours a day, 5 days a
Hey,
week.
Don, I'm going to interrupt you
There'd
for
be
1
no
second.
there'd be no coverage
Don?
on the weekends, no coverage on holidays, no coverage at night.
Let me finish my thought, please, because I'll let you talk afterwards. I had some thoughts there.
All right.
Okay. And then we will go into whatever you want to counterpoint with. And I encourage that because I think this is healthy. Good debates. But the per diem work was going to bring totaling $244,000. And not saying that's a good plan. I'm not saying it's the best plan. I'm not saying it's the only plan. I'm saying it's an option. So we have that option.
Can I just interrupt there at the per diem?
Yes.
Action said, anyone who wants to sign up for per diem, let us know. Not one of those people did.
Maybe they don't want to work for Action.
And they're gonna want to work for us?
We're great people.
There's the option to build something internally as a town, move forward with a pride of ownership. One, we're not charging an arm and a leg for insurance to our residents because that's going to be the huge factor right there. Is we're not going to be a for-profit business. We're going to be a service business to our residents to give them something.
So what you're saying is that the town will have to contract with every insurance company, like all the private ambulances do.
Is that how that works?
Yeah, they have
So I
to,
don't know.
they have a contract, they have to get a contract, we'll pay you so much. And then, if the person can't or doesn't want to pay their copay, we only collect, that's way down the road.
Yeah,
but,
that's yeah, we're splitting hairs there.
Yeah, yeah.
But my point is, I before we're ready to extend, I think there's kinks in the contract we can work out. To your point, I don't think it's turnkey operation at this point. We couldn't just hand it over to the fire department. They need some direction and they need some assistance getting there. Do I think we could get there? Yes, I do. Do I think a layover and a 1-year extension could get us to that point? It's very possible.
But it's not a 4-month thing. So if I led you like I wanted to keep the fire department in the loop for a July thing, that was not my intent.
Right.
My point is in the future, it should be considered, but there are obstacles or challenges to overcome.
Right.
As you
Yeah,
you
sure.
pointed out,
Yeah,
it's true, like with any operation. So the question to the board in front of us is, and we've had the opportunity to have some insight from the ambulance committees, meetings, et cetera. What does the board want to do? Do we want to go out and get some competitive numbers from other firms like Cataldo, like, I don't even know if National AMR is in the business anymore per se.
Well, we know what AMR offered us in 2019.
Right, but I mean, is it worth like kicking the tires again? Like, Don, you're not wrong that if you look at the strict increase in the number from Action, it's from that point a good deal. Look, we just heard minimum 4% increase from cost of living for employees, and their number is only going up
3.
Great. And we are seeing a bit of a rebate coming
Yeah,
down now,
hopefully.
hopefully, but is it the due diligence of this board to still make sure we're getting a good deal? This isn't $300, it's $350,000. And should we be diligent in looking out there, making sure there's not somebody doing the same job for $250 or something else? You know, it's the beginning of
I
February.
don't think we're gonna
We
get
have-
250.
No, but I'm saying it's our job to like, look out for that type of thing.
Well,
And
in
say-
that whole aspect, there's some other things in the contract that kind of bother me that if
Mm-hmm.
we would extend, I think they need to be addressed.
And let's talk about the fining thing, which hasn't really been.
Well, that was coming up to one of my other points. So in section 6, the response time, and a response time of over 10 minutes, it says action shall submit a written report within 24 hours to various departments, including the Board of Selectmen. And in the calendar year of 2022, according to Action's yearly report, they were over 10 minutes or over 43 times. And in that section 6, there's a clause, a $500 per incident fine. So that's $21,500 that we didn't collect on because
Well, it's
I never
not,
saw a report.
it's not an automatic fine, though.
What's that?
It's not an automatic fine. It's if
Well, it's gotta be-
if the fire chief or whoever is,
Right. My point is, has the Board of Selectmen ever been notified by a call over 10 minutes? Because I've never seen an email stating
Right.
anything over 10
And
minutes.
if they're waiving that, we should be in that
Right.
as well. Right.
we could fix that.
Right, and I think that's an
Well,
easy
that's what I'm
fix.
saying.
But that's, that's part of the contract that bothers me. Another one is, and I'm gonna nitpick this one,
Yeah, go ahead.
and it's fine because it's really not a point, but it's a contract issue. That a response time of less than 8 minutes or 90% of the calls is what they strive for. And if you do the numbers off of their yearly report,
Yeah, they're
we're at
89
84%.
point something.
84%. If I take the numbers that they have in their
Yeah,
report
yeah,
there,
yeah.
it's 84% response time, which is, I'm splitting hairs now, but you know, it's contract terms. The other thing that I've noticed recently is Action's been going out of service. And we've had no ambulance service. And I think I calculated 6 times on the spreadsheet that Tony had sent when it's reported Action ambulance out of service. And I think 8 times in total that's happened, 3 times they were backed up by a BLS ambulance. But there's times where they went out of service for various reasons, whether it's med restock, inspection, and ambulance inspections was listed a couple times in there. And that's concerning to me because we're paying for 360, 24/7, 365. And obviously, Don brought it up earlier, the BLS service. And we've nailed that down and we've beaten that to death because we know
Yeah.
that's an obvious issue. So I won't even go into those numbers, but those are pretty high in the last, since the fall.
Yeah, they've all had trouble since the fall for some reason.
So,
Right.
and then just one other thing that just doesn't make sense to me in the contract was section 11, it says backup service. And what I don't get is, the first paragraph, it says in the event of emergency of first line ambulance service is not available, or should the need exceed a single ambulance, the contractor shall provide a backup ambulance. But then later in that same paragraph, it says, if the contractor is unable to provide a backup ambulance within the contracted time, then, we'll search for mutual aid. So it's very, you're saying shall, as in, shall in the contract is,
Yeah.
it's.
Well, don't they, if the ambulance leaves town, don't they send a backup?
They try and direct
It has to be
yeah,
available, it
right.
doesn't have to be in town lines.
Yeah,
Right.
but usually start sending it towards here for
It's the
some.
definition of shall and,
Right.
rather.
And the other
shall-
issue that
rather than
enters-
Shall try, it's shall.
The other issue that enters into, of course, there is that with the new mutual aid requirement that if they call you,
You have to go.
you gotta go.
Right. And that's happened recently too, where,
Yeah.
Action got called for station coverage in another town.
Yeah,
And it left our town lines to go sit somewhere else,
yeah, and
which I have a problem with too.
the reg, but that's the regs,
Well, no, they don't have to go for station coverage. They have to go for a call.
Right.
Not just man a station.
So,
So where do we want to go? We have, and I will say, I think we got an answer back from the town attorney that we're within our purview, 30B, et cetera, to work with the extension in the contract.
Yeah.
Right. So we have that, I'll say authority, but it's verified. Do we want to go ahead and pull Action in here and talk about upgrading the contract so it's more, I don't want to say beneficial, but that we have a chance to, now that we've had the light of 2020 experience with it, fix what we see are, I don't say omissions, but changes that would benefit both parties, as anything would happen.
And are we able to do that though? I mean, are we able to amend and fix the contract as an extension?
I think you can open for amendments.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, we did it inside the
You're gonna be
period, we
amending,
fixed,
if
we
you
did
do
one
it, you're gonna
already.
be amending for the price as well.
Yeah.
Mm.
But, you know,
I mean, we amended the contract for the reporting part.
Reporting, yeah,
inside without
yeah,
rewriting it. As long as it's not wholesale rewriting.
Yeah, and they had to take forever to do that.
Our timeframe, yeah.
Yeah,
We should
no.
look at past history. So is it the board's thought then to bring them in? Now, do we do this ourselves? Do we ask the ambulance committee to work with us on changing the contract? Sorry, on, not changing the contract, upgrading the contract under our direction to,
I think we should, if it's a consideration, we should talk to Action, and have a dialogue between us and them before we look anywhere else. We need to know what their thoughts are to the things we've just mentioned, accountabilities, and how can we, protect the town more and, use the 1 year for a possible bridge. Is there other options out there, to either A, ramp us up or look elsewhere?
right. Well, we have 2.5 months until town meeting. We haven't been derelict, we've been diligent on this, we have time. Even if we went out to bid, we would have time. But we still want to be prudent and work at a good pace.
I can take the notes from your comments tonight and provide those notes as amendments to the contract. Let you look at it. If you're satisfied with it, send it off to them and tell them you want to meet with them to discuss changes like that, changes like you're suggesting.
I don't think those would be my only suggestions to the amendments. I don't think that would be my only, those ones I mentioned tonight, I don't think those would be my only suggestions. There may be more.
We could get a list of those and.
Well, we can send those to them. We could ask if they can schedule to come in with us next week. Again, when you do the agenda, I would say figure 20, 25 minutes for this discussion. We're paid by the hour now.
Yeah.
We'll have more cookies. And if the ambulance committee would like to join and certainly entertain their comments from the audience, with their experience as well, as we have action in front of us. I think that's, anybody with suggestions that would help improve service to the town is welcome. What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to take suggestions.
Implementing is a different thing.
We may not even have thought about the right option yet. There
That's
may
true.
be another option
Right.
that's out there that we don't know about.
Hey. Don, what do you think? Try and get them in next week?
Yeah,
Send this list to them
Yeah.
and say, this is a starting point. We may have more. But if we're diligent in this, we may have it wrapped up, in a prudent,
time is
timely
coming.
manner. Okay.
Right.
The other side of the coin is, it would take a number of months if we wanted to evaluate other options.
Oh, another month, but I mean, I think right now, if we had to go RFQ and then evaluate, we'd be right up against town meeting, but I think
That's
we
what
can
I'm
still
saying.
get it done.
I meant to say a number of months.
Yeah,
If you want to look at, let's say, pricing or costs
Mhm.
or municipalization.
that's, we're not, I think we pretty much talked about that as a future on the table type.
That's what I'm
thing.
saying.
Yeah.
If you decide to go forward with a 1 year, then.
Well,
there
To
would
that
be
point, and to what
time.
Bob's saying there, I think we would have to work some language in there if we wanted to do that, where we could have that year time frame for us to coordinate, figure out an easy transition if that was the case.
Mhm.
I mean, there's obviously a lot of logistics there, a lot of planning, a lot of number crunching to see what that would look like.
Mhm.
But to Bob's point,
And there'd
that's
be
probably a year
implications
process.
For the fire station as well.
All right, so you're going to send this list to them. It's a projected list of some things we have. Ask them to come in next week. Everyone okay with that?
All right,
Item at the 6:25, we talked about Belchertown joining the regional. I've been told by the town administrator in Wilbraham that's no longer something they're entertaining for this upcoming year. So that's not an agenda item. Town administrator in Wilbraham. Aisle 4 at Big Y. You know that, Don?
all too well.
Verizon poll agreement. Damn.
What's this?
number 2.
Nothing in the folder.
I got nothing.
Okay.
Where is it? Oh,
Okay.
it's on the OneDrive?
Great, Rose's comments.
Yeah, I heard that. No, come on.
I don't see that.
Under tonight's agenda, Pam? Under tonight's agenda? Okay. No,
It's not, it's under agendas, just if you go under agendas, Board of Health, Board of Selectmen agendas. 2.6, so I see it there,
this
Verizon,
one right here, this thing.
yeah,
The aerial agreement?
there's 2 here.
No one's a PDF version, I think.
Oh, it's outside the
Put it in the
packet. I see it.
Electronic copy in the packet.
Oof.
Rose looked at this?
We did, and in a meeting with Whip City Fiber last Wednesday, they're anxious to get it signed so that they can move forward.
Well,
62 pages. I think I did see a comment from her that obviously their things are pushed towards them, not, but this is the one that many towns have just, and they haven't failed to live up to their obligations in this with the other towns. Okay. But they like to play the big dog, and we're Verizon. But they haven't failed the contract in any other town.
well,
It's their standard.
you can tell Big Dog that the first line, this agreement made as of this day of the 2021, that they're only 2 years off on that. So
Don, it's been a pandemic.
they might
Everybody's
want to
off.
correct that.
At least they spelled Hampden, right? I think that's counts for something.
Well, in the first part, but we don't know through the whole thing. I've seen those where they digress as they go along.
True. Ludlow further down or something,
Yeah.
right?
And this is to put, fix the poles,
Yeah.
Yeah, this is the.
are they gonna
the
fix certain
process.
poles?
So this is the point where we get the agreement to look at the poles and survey them to see if there's a pole space for fiber optic. And
Didn't
B,
they do that already?
No, we need to get authorization to be able to
Well, what were they doing out there? Just counting them?
Well, they're,
surveying.
And they
the
go out,
location every
and
pole.
they have.
because
one of
half the
their
poles are Verizon,
members,
half the
team
poles are the
members,
grid.
and they
So I
have
looked at the
someone
grid
from
poles, but not the Verizon
And they go
poles, right?
pole by pole.
Which aren't all their
and they
poles.
argue whether or
Right.
not the responsibility ought to be with Verizon or what
Sure.
ought to be with our fiber optic. partner.
Right, but not every pole is owned by Verizon either.
No,
Right,
That's
why
the
National
other
Grid-
problem.
National Grid's already been signed.
Right,
yeah,
yeah.
the others
Right.
already gone forward, moved forward.
Any chance they could fix the pole at Bond Corner while they're doing
They
this?
probably can. I mean, that's the essence of what happens
I
there.
know.
What will come out of
They
this too is they'll
represent
find
the
poles that
town.
are outdated, that should have been replaced
Sure.
by the utility.
So we've already
Whip
done
City
the same thing.
represents the town, and
We've
so-
already done the same thing for the grid to this point.
Mhm.
And now we just need, okay. Well, I think per Don's point there, if they could fix these stupid typographical errors in this, I don't see a problem with it.
We need a motion, right? We did it need to be official, so move to approve the pole attachment agreement for Verizon.
Second?
So this year, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Oh, yeah, aye.
Okay, thank you.
Aye, aye.
So where's the, those, all of, I see appendices.
What?
Looks like all three of us is, no, I can't tell. How many? I look at page, signee, assignor, I don't know, on page 50. How many signed?
Can we authorize Bob to sign it? Is that,
Oh, good, then he's
If
responsible
you,
for it.
if you voted it,
yeah,
I assume that I can sign.
okay.
Well, I think authorize, make a motion to authorize Bob to sign on behalf of the Board of Selectmen.
Second?
You make that motion?
Yes.
You second? All in favor?
Second.
Aye, thank you. Bob.
There's a
for
so
you.
moved in there
Yeah.
somewhere.
It,
So this puts basically now both utilities,
Mhm.
both utility in on task with the fiber project.
Right, and that was a big thing. They're waiting on this so they can move forward.
Okay. Do we anticipate anything coming to town meeting for fiber this spring?
It depends if the poll application process can get done before town meeting, so we have a cost of what it would be to complete the project.
Okay.
So you don't know that cost until they do the poll inspection.
Is there a potential for an authorization for bonding or something that might be part of it at this point?
I
You
think
need a hard number to do so.
we need a hard number to know exactly what the cost is for building out the infrastructure.
Mhm.
There is an option where if we don't know that number, we're still waiting on poll inspections and
Right.
to come back. We could go next to the design phase, which is, it's phase 2, design is in there. We could just supplement that portion of a project with just a design, which would be a lot less.
Okay,
The number they gave us was very squishy.
Very squishy.
right. Okay. Before we go to selectmen budget, just want to close here. We have a letter we received last Friday or whatever from the town treasurer asking for permission to authorize him to get a
Letter of credit.
letter of credit for the fiber optic project. And he can get it for 3,000.
what does that mean? We don't have $3,000, we need a letter of credit?
300, in other
Right.
words. And to do that, he needed a statement from town council about pending lawsuits,
Right.
which we have.
Oh, yeah.
We got.
Kept it under 2 pages, I hope. Can we authorize the treasurer to get a letter of credit?
So we can get $300,000 for $3,000?
Yeah.
And what are we gonna do with that $300,000? Why do we need it? Yeah.
So we're not planning, we're getting a letter of credit as a insurance policy. We're not planning on drawing against it, but to satisfy them, we have to show that we have surety in place if something happens. Right. Right?
Yes,
Okay.
this is a substitute for getting the bond out.
So an insurance bond, like you said, would have been 3,500.
Right.
30,000.
No, if we got a bond through the insurance company, it was 3,500. We got a letter of credit from Munson.
Nice.
So we needed some type of surety. Either we could get an insurance bond from Barry, or we get a letter of credit from Munson.
I guess it's no different than any other town that's gone through this, right, Bob?
No,
This is no different than any other town that's had to do this already, right?
No.
This is basically a surety
So
in
every-
place.
Well,
It's showing that we have protected in place.
So the difference is $500?
Right, basically. And cost of the town. Right.
As capital?
So we have two,
Treasurer thinks that this is.
so basically you have
Oh,
two quotes. You could get a
National Grid.
bond from Barry, or you could get a letter of credit from Munson.
Correct.
And one way or the other, we have to authorize the treasurer to get one or the other.
But Dick also thinks this is the best way to do
Oh,
it.
it's cheaper, sure. $500 cheaper. Where's the money coming from?
That's coming out of our,
It'll come out of that 250.
the 250 we grant, the
received,
grant money.
Is it grant money?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's part of that.
Grant.
Okay, good. So the grant pays for this, so it's no
Yeah.
cost to
This
us.
is-
We're
this
getting-
is what the
We're getting the lowest bid for
Legitimate
the
use for
surety.
the grant,
All right.
yes.
I can see this is like it's pulling teeth from you, Don.
I'm so
Right
cheap.
It's not costing you a dime.
All right, I move we let the we authorize the treasurer to
Get a letter of credit.
get the letter of credit from the Munson Savings Bank, the Monsoon Savings Bank.
It's spelled right.
Oh, the Munson Savings
And
Bank.
the toasted.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Well, that was like pulling teeth. Budget, I'm just going to,
Forget it.
no, are you here for?
PFSA.
Okay.
PFAS.
Are you a resident or?
Oh,
He's the one, I think he's the one who's been doing the testing. I think, did Jane reach out to you? Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So he was just going to give context, the insight.
Okay,
come on up.
yeah, let's, you mind hopping to this?
No,
first?
that's fine.
Great. From Fabry?
Hmm?
From Fabry?
You're from
You're
Fabry,
from
right?
Fabry, right?
Yeah, my
Oh,
name's
that's
Bill
right.
Fabry,
Bill Fabry.
WJFGO
Yeah.
Consultants.
Wait a minute. We in school together?
Excuse me?
Are we in school together?
Or maybe with my cousins, I have cousins from Hampden.
I was thinking Bull, I used to
Yeah, that was
play.
my uncle.
Was it? Okay, yeah. Remember Bull Fabry, he used to play volleyball at the, Got a good egg. So what
I
happened?
have to eat them before I get home because she won't let me.
It didn't happen on our property, please. We just went through an insurance thing.
Understood. So I introduce myself.
Yes, please.
Bill Fabry, WJFGO Consultants. Bill Fabry, WJFGO Consultants out of Wilbraham, Mass.
Now, let's be clear, we've been using WJF Fabry for a number of years for the testing at the landfill, so they are very familiar with what's going on up there.
At the landfill and at the private wells. And I should say, Mass DEP came out with a directive last summer to sample all the private wells for PFAS. PFAS is an emerging contaminant in the state, so they're taking this very serious when it comes to landfills and private wells in the area. Okay, so we sampled last October. 4 out of the 9 or 10 residents had PFAS, but it was below the DEP directive, the standards. So there wasn't an immediate threat. Right? So they came out at the end of January with a new directive. Instead of just to back up a little bit, we used to sample the private wells twice per year, April and October. Now they want the town to sample all the monitoring wells on the landfill, all the private wells in 3 stream samples on a quarterly basis. So, which I sent the letter to Jane last week, and she may have distributed it to you folks. I'm not sure.
It's on our one.
But it's a tremendous, it's a significant financial increase to the town from roughly $10,000 a year in analytical costs to more than $70,000. Okay, just for that. So.
Now, you did say that you had 4 positive hits, but
Correct.
they were below the treatment level, but above the monitoring level.
Well, they were below the action level.
Action level,
considers.
sure. Okay.
So
One was very close, though.
One was like 18 or 18.5.
So
Parts per-
that's true,
Yeah.
but that was total PFAS. So DEP has, and I have a table here. I'm not sure
Yeah.
if that was passed out, but there's more than 3,000 PFAS compounds, and it's in everything.
Mhm.
Vortex. You go to McDonald's, it's in the paper. It's everywhere. So there's 6 that are highlighted, even though that there's more on this data table. The highest one that we had that DEP considers to be an issue was 6.9. From lowest was 4 up to 6.9 that DEP considers an action level. If it hits 20 parts per trillion, and we're talking per trillion here,
Very minute.
very minute, okay, that would then kick one of these locations, or even the landfill itself, into the Division of Solid Waste, into the Bureau of Waste Site Cleanup, a different division with DEP.
Mhm.
Okay, that would be considered what they call an immediate response action, and it's a 2-hour notification. So when I get these lab results in, after we sample, whatever it is, and I see that the constituents of concern are greater than 20, I would call probably Jane or someone at the town and get authorization that I can then call DEP for this 2-hour notification. And they would say, Bill, what are you going to do? And the plan of action would be initially to provide bottled water to the resident of concern,
Mhm.
and then go to some carbon treatment system.
It's my understanding that DEP came in last week, Dan Hall and Tom Spate, to discuss alternatives. And I know there's a water line in the area. There's a few residents that are already hooked up to this. And instead of spending $100,000 a year in sampling just for private wells between the lab and our costs to tie into those 10 residents.
I think just for context sake, just so it's on the record here, because we're getting ahead of ourselves, right?
Do that.
Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, let's go back to historical, because
Yeah.
here's the kid. So these homes we're testing now are in the, and I wish actually Jim was still here because he was actually part of the crew that did this. These are part of the homes that were in the district that was formed 20 years ago.
I believe so, yeah.
They were not hooked up to the water line at that point, as it wasn't, their numbers for regular contamination weren't there. But they were always required to be monitored.
Yes.
One advantage is that that district includes these homes already. The map is already inclusive of those areas. So that part does save,
I believe Jane provided
right.
this.
So just to say contextually, these were always on the radar
Yes,
for,
my understanding.
with the inclusion at some point.
And you were doing
Right.
what, testing twice a year just for normal contamination?
Yeah, and what DEP calls in the solid waste program, landfill parameters.
Okay.
There's a whole listing.
And what was it? It started in 2023 was when the new mandate came out for PFAS testing?
Well, they wanted us to incorporate it into
Right.
the October event last fall.
Okay, so
And then based on our results, they said, you know what, we're gonna amp this game up.
and because 4 of the testing sites tested positive for PFAS, automatically triggered quarterly testing. That's how I understand it?
That I don't know. I don't know what DEP,
Yeah.
I think DEP is just being conservative.
That's what they told me in the meeting last
Okay.
week. It's since doesn't matter what the level was, it was a positive hit
It was a hit.
that it required quarterly testing.
But quarterly testing of the 4 that were positive or all 9?
all of them.
Even though they didn't test anything?
Yes.
Yeah, those results were non-detect for those particular,
But we still have to test them 4 times?
correct. Including the monitoring wells on the landfill.
Right.
Because those were only done once per year. They were done every April.
And actually,
And now we have
we
to do
had
them
seen, before PFAS, we had actually seen the possibility of some of those tests dropping off because of no detection for a number of years.
Probably, yeah.
That was some point, well, but, so as you said, I think Craig said this before, you're talking a number of, in the testing thing, that could approach $100,000.
Between the consulting costs, our costs,
Mhm.
and the analytical, obviously the analytical.
Stream testing, things like that, and like, now, if we did this type of thing, we wouldn't get away from the landfill testing or the stream testing. We would just get away from the home testing, right?
Correct.
What's your thought?
I'm trying to remember in the conversation with Dan Hall last week from DEP that, what was your point there? If we got away from what? What did you say?
Which one? We would not get away from testing the landfill for PFAS or the streams because they would still be the original source.
I would believe
Right.
so.
Yeah.
We would still have to test for them, but I think it would roll back to the annual testing rather than quarterly testing.
Probably.
Yeah.
I would say that probably would be
Yeah.
correct, yeah.
Because there were no hits at the land.
Well, no, not necessarily. We don't know.
No public water
Yeah,
supply.
you guys would be on the public water supply.
Well,
You'd
So-
be connected, hopefully. That's
So because it's not a home use, they really wouldn't be looking for a quarterly because it's just
correct, yeah.
yeah.
around. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. That'd be inside our, well, I'm gonna say, we've had good luck with your, I think budget 25, just the worst case, but we've been inside that budget for a number of years. Especially as we thought things were gonna be falling off because after, if they haven't seen uranium for 12 years, we would hope they'd stop testing for it. So,
So in the meeting with Dan Hall last week, his recommendation was, and this is something I haven't run by the Water Commission yet, and we're planning on doing it at our next meeting, so we can have this discussion in public. But Dan Hall's recommendation was to hook the 10 affected homes onto the Scannick Valley Water District to save money.
let me just change
Sure.
something. They're not affected homes. The 10
The 10
homes.
tested homes,
Right.
4
The 10
affected.
tested ones,
Yeah.
yeah, 4 are affected.
4 affected.
Right.
Sorry.
So basically, the rest of the district, at this point, everyone that was listed as potential, just go ahead and hook them up.
Right. But that's going to lead to some other questions like, okay, is the 2 wells at Laughing Brook able to keep up with the demand.
Mhm.
You know, there's an issue, we've kicked it around in the Water Commission before about the in-ground storage tank.
Mhm.
There's going to be a point where the DEP is probably going to say that tank is no longer of a passing grade, you know, no longer callable, it's going to have to be above ground storage. So there's other options there and other things that may need to happen for an expansion per se in the district again.
Now, this expansion though, if we were doing more work in the district, this would be, just like the other expansion was, covered by ARPA. It would not require a town meeting vote because these are already things already in the district. So there's no expanding the district per se.
We wouldn't need legislature to expand the geographical
Right,
area.
right.
Because it's still, I mean, the 10 homes are
Original map.
right there.
Right, the original map anyhow.
Yeah.
Right.
One of the state programs, grant programs, seems to align with this need. The deadline for expression of interest was Friday at noon. So I took a shot in the dark and applied for $400,000 to do this in case you decide to do it. That was step one in the grant process. What we would need would be something more accurate in terms of an assessment of the cost of doing the hookups. And then I'd have to give them in the full grant proposal a more accurate sense of what it's going to cost. You know, we would ask one of the consultants to give us an estimate, and I would include that. And as I read the regulations, it seems to align. So we may very well be able to get significant funding, if not the entire amount of funding, to do this hookup.
Any chance of getting it in a timely manner after we've already spent all the money?
Probably not. The one-stop program extends through the winter and into the spring.
Well, let me ask you this, and because you're a better money man than us. If we decide to pay for it out of ARPA and the grant came through, would we be able to take those funds and reimburse ARPA?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, then we can float it without having to go to
Yeah,
town
we
meeting
could, yeah,
for.
we could,
Only because I throw that out there, because this seems to be something, an immediacy type thing, because otherwise, Don, as Craig has said, we're at the put in the budget $100,000 next year for testing.
Right, and I think it comes more than just money too. Obviously, the money's a big thing, but you know, PFAS is it's not a nice thing that you want to have around in your drinking water. You know, it's a cancer-causing chemical. There's lots of things. We want to make sure that, you know, those homes over there are taken care of.
But here's the thing. There are probably other hits in town. We're just, unfortunately, we're dealing with the ones that, I don't say we're responsible for, but we have the capacity to take care of. Is the next step, and I want to say it because I think they have the right authority, to kick it to the Water Commission, let you guys do your due diligence.
Right. We have our meeting next week, and the plan was to talk to the board and see what the thoughts were. You know, I don't think there's going to be any reservations, but you know, obviously, I can't speak for the entire board.
Okay.
I was in that meeting also, and my sense was that they were connecting this issue with the landfill. So if there's other places in town where you have another landfill that's closed or whatever, it might be another issue.
Yeah.
It was municipal. Well, I think it was municipal locations, right? And I think they're triggering small towns with our criteria, well waters and you know, landfills.
I don't know. I'm sure other people in town have gotten PFAS testing. I have no idea.
There was a state program last year, and I
Right.
think Don had mentioned it before. There was a bunch
We
of
had written
locals there.
letters to
Yeah.
a number of.
But I don't know if there were any hits.
No,
We wouldn't know.
no,
Is the board comfortable with the Water Commission? Is the board comfortable with authorizing the Water Commission to reach out to somebody like, I would say Ty and Bond, because they have all the drawings, everything for the current system and the closure, to get a budget number that you can work with?
And I don't know what their workload is or their criteria. You know, they may require us to say, we can't do this estimate without cost, right? So they're going to look
Well,
for.
we still have 600 plus.
Right.
Unallocated.
You know, the questions I know that are going to come up are, you know, capacity, home sizes. You know, we just did the expansion down here with some hiccups here and there, but for the most part, it's running smooth. You know, is it is it possible, you know,
Yeah, I
to
mean,
add 10 more residences?
seems like your capacity for adding is a thing. The distance is at least better than it was running 3,000 feet down the road towards
Right,
this
some of
area
them are
here.
just gonna be, you know, street to house, because they're right there.
Nippling across the street or something, sure. Um, I understand what you're saying. You know, you may reach out to them and say, look, we're gonna need $5,000 to authorize an engineering study or something. And I don't want to give you a blank check per se, but I think it's something, I don't want to keep coming back to a meeting, and, you know, you come
Mhm.
back. It is something that's qualified for ARPA. We have money for it. I think you should have, in my opinion, the latitude to go ahead and get done what you need to get done. Don, are you comfortable with them asking Bob for authorization for engineering money? Okay, great.
It's gotta get done.
Right, exactly.
Okay.
And your meeting is next week or tomorrow?
It should be next Tuesday, right, John?
Next Tuesday?
Oh,
Their
John
meeting next
Plaster, I was
Tuesday.
just confirming next Tuesday.
Okay. Super, so we keep it on the radar. Thank you, Craig. All right. What else, what other problem?
No, the only reason why I was here is because you know, Mr. Kendrick, who's at 15 South Munson Road, he's leaving for Florida in a few weeks, and I know everyone was kind of wanted to see what the urgency was when we can sample.
Mhm.
So we've already started the ball rolling a little bit, contacted the lab and getting the glassware. We were just looking essentially for authorization so that we can possibly start, you know, making the phone calls to the residents in the morning and do this on Thursday, and then which likely would then do the landfill after, we want to take care of the residents first.
Okay. If you could just quickly touch on the levels you talked about are underneath the action number.
Correct,
So the state feels, the state will err on the side of caution.
correct,
They want them to continue to be monitored,
correct.
but there's no action required at this point.
Not at this point.
The next testing date is ballpark when?
So it would be within 3 months.
Okay.
So they wanted us to do the sampling before March 1st.
Mhm.
And the next one is June 1st, be by then, and it's quarterly, every 3 months.
Okay. Budget wise, and like I said, I know in the current landfill testing budget, we authorized 25,000. We've been spending around 12 to 15. Do you think there's enough there to handle these, or we're going to need to? If we have enough, if we have,
It depends on the one caveat that we don't, or the one item that we don't know is if there's a hit that goes above 20,
Mhm.
then you could be, we'd be looking at bottled water,
Mhm.
potential carbon filtration
no, I'm just
system.
talking testing at
Oh,
this
just
point.
testing, okay. Probably, I would think so.
Page 7 has a rough cost of testing.
And this is a annual number.
No, that's quarterly.
Each quarter is 18,000.
Correct, that's from the lab.
Oh, then we don't have enough. Okay. Shoot, we only run an extra 10 in that account. So
Yeah, that's why I
this
put it
is
in my-
why we really need that Board of Health revolving account. You know, we need to get that back under our control.
And according to the lab, this was essentially what they considered a worst-case scenario, and I talked with DEP about it, because a lot of these homes have filters, so you have to collect a pre-filter and then a post-filter.
Every
The
test.
pre-filter is non-detect, okay, then you don't have to do the post-filter, so then you save on that. And we also included, because the regulations do say that you're supposed to have a field blank for both a pre-filter and a post-filter. Well, Dan, and I said, well, Dan, do we really need that? And so we whittled that in half also. And each PFAS analysis is anywhere from $250 to $300.
Yeesh.
So we could probably, I'm thinking we'd be able to save maybe another $2,000 to $5,000 if the data come up.
But
What
you've
is it?
already, no, just quickly say, you've already done one of these
Correct.
full tests.
So
So
that-
we've already
that bill's
got a
coming
bill
our way.
for 18,000, which we need a way to pay that because we don't have it in the account.
Now, what I heard last week was, with Dan, that the houses that were tested were in the single numbers.
Correct.
Right.
That's
Low,
correct.
low
Yeah.
to mid-single numbers.
Right.
And 20 parts per billion, I believe.
Trillion.
Trillion.
is the trigger.
Right.
It is.
But we still have to test, doesn't, right?
You still have to test.
Even the ones that are zeros are
Correct.
not in tech, which is like,
And the reason why they want to do it in New England, since we have seasons, they want to see seasonal fluctuations. The water table rises and falls.
and I understand that, but I mean, if you had a no tech, why they still make us do quarterly
the
on the
DEP.
nose? Because they're DEP.
conservative.
Yeah,
It's
okay.
not him.
All right, okay. So,
And I think the concern was too, if there was one that, you know, with the rise and fall of the seasons,
Mhm.
if it did pass the 20 parts per trillion point, would require that 2-hour notification. And at that point, the DP come in and says, hey, you need to fix this now.
Okay.
But
But
of the 4 that showed, they were all in one area. They're all right next to each other. Because some of them are on a crossroad, some are way down on Glendale, but 3 of them are on Scannick and 1's on South Munson. And they're all right in that corner.
how many times have you done the PFAS testing so far?
Once.
Just once, all right. So, Bob, then kind of your mission is, so we have I'm guessing an outstanding bill for roughly 18.
No, you should not, because that was done last October and everything, so.
So that already got billed in last
Yeah,
fiscal year?
yeah, that's all been taken care of.
I understand that, but it should have, if you look at our current account, then it should be wiped out. If you quote us for the landfill roughly 12 to 13,000 for testing every year. We budget 25.
Yes.
That number is coming out of that account. So it's adding on to the 12 of your regular testing. So we may have been able to cover it because we haven't been spending the other part of the fiscal year,
But now we have no more.
but we
money.
should have been wiped out, right? So Bob, if you're going to be having another set in February, sometime this fiscal year, you're going to have to find a way to replenish 25, 30,000 into that account.
On a quarterly basis, that's.
Well, for the remainder of this fiscal year, you're going to have
Oh,
one
fiscal
more
year,
test.
That's June 30th?
Yeah, so you're going to be testing again in May,
Yeah, yeah.
April, May.
We'll
something
look at
like
2 more
that. So we'll
tests
have another-
possibly.
Well,
Yeah, we haven't even done the one that's required now.
oh, you haven't?
No, that's why I'm here.
We're gonna approve that.
Yeah,
That proposal I just sent last week.
Which is what you're looking at right here.
so we need to find a way
Right.
to fund it.
This is another large and expensive, unfunded state mandate. The old way was they'd give you the mandate and they'd say, here's some money. Now, here's the mandate. We're not going to consider it an unfunded mandate. And here are the sanctions if you don't do it.
Sure, great. We're not the only town with this problem.
No,
No,
you're not.
No, no, okay, yeah. All right, so come up with some suggestions next week and how we can, obviously, we're signing the contract, go ahead and get it done. You're going to work with your board on this, and you're going to come out with a way to pay for it. Don, what are you doing?
Even if you can't sell your car.
I can kite a check if you want.
Nice.
We may want to consider putting it into the budget or town meeting.
Oh, we're gonna have to, I mean, that's your
Yeah.
Board of Health budget right there,
Yeah.
so, yeah. But right now, this guy needs to get paid, he's got medical
Well, we haven't
bills.
started
He's got
yet.
a sling there he got medical bills.
No, we don't have any pending bills right now.
No,
No,
all
but
not.
we're going to incur them pretty quick.
Right, right.
Yeah. So
You know-
the other thing that I always do, or if possible, is I am having the lab invoice you folks directly to avoid any markup. And typically well, $500 is $500, right? So I mean, any money you can save, eh?
Mhm.
So,
I think someone was paying it.
Hey, we saved $500 on the last thing for you, we were fighting it.
That's what he's talking about.
Mr. Bank. All right, well, thank you.
you want a business card in case there's any questions that come up or
Does
whatever.
Jane have your business card?
Probably.
Then we're all
I think
set.
Jane's got him on speed
No,
dial.
I have your card from before, thank you.
Yeah, we have the date. We have the.
Thank you, Bill.
Very good, thank you.
Nice. Walking wounded here.
You ready for spring training?
Rotator or? Be good.
Take care. Thank you.
No, there were some good ones there. Selectmen budgets. Well, obviously, we got some things to think about for on the Selectmen Board of Health, things like that. Anything new from last week? Obviously, I put a pause on this and now factor in our COLA numbers before you come back to us. Okay?
We'll do that and probably get it back to you next week. Pam told me today that she does have a few new numbers.
Okay. The other thing I'm concerned about, and did anybody read the report from the roundtable last week? Don, I know you were there, and et cetera. One of the things that was mentioned during the roundtable that I read in the reminder was they were projecting a 17% increase in utilities, which is pretty huge. I thought I heard that they were hopefully it was going to be trending down going into the summer. So there's a huge increase in the current fiscal year is how I saw it. But I would think if they didn't project that last year, they're short this year, I know. Yeah. You've got that extension cord running to Berger's house next door, I know that. So.
And I did send you in
I like
connection
it
with,
when the neighbors go to Florida, they
Got the extension cord.
can extension cord across.
Scotty, are you listening? Thank you.
the other budget matter coming from
Don't be in
them, I
Florida
think I
for
sent out
January.
to you. this
Really,
afternoon.
really? Huh?
The other thing I sent out this afternoon relative to the budget and the schools was that railing proposal.
Yeah, I saw that.
They're
yeah.
asking for ARPA. Do you want to discuss that next week?
Well, I also read they were talking about using their mitigation.
Capital funds.
Right, so
Yeah.
they have a finance committee meeting tonight, and I know Doug was at that, so I think we'll look for a little more direction from them.
Pam, did you say you got numbers for insurance and liability?
8-12% up or 12,000 up percent? Oy. And we added one vehicle, two vehicles, one vehicle. Right, and then Dick was projecting down, what did he say last time? He wasn't expecting a huge bump like previous years, but still,
And
Bob was
the
telling me,
county?
in the, in the SV, the health insurance.
Oh, yeah, no.
It wasn't gonna be double
It
digits
wasn't
this
gonna
year,
be double
yeah,
digits.
yeah. One thing about, we don't have to pay the ACA. You know, but private companies, we get 3%. Municipalities don't. Until it's repealed this year. Is that what they're pushing for?
Well, maybe we should shop around for our insurance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. Can't hear us? No, from the boy.
Well, we could get,
You want to put a vape shop in there, Bob?
no, I'm just saying that it sits there derelict. And just wondering if there's something that the selectmen think we should do with it. We can get, again, one-stop money.
Mm-hmm.
That's derelict?
We could, the whole property is derelict.
Come on, Farm.
I mean, the building and,
Thought you were
You're
talking about-
back on your house again,
Thought you
right?
were talking about an employee.
so, if the selectmen want to go in a certain direction, we can A, just leave it there and see what happens, because there may be some offers to buy it.
Mhm.
Or secondly, the town could move forward with some way to acquire and clean it up.
Is there still contamination there? Has that been cleaned up? Do you know?
I thought they were off the list.
They
I
got
understand
cleaned
they
up.
got-
In talking with Wendell, he said that it is suspected that you got water problems, contamination of the water, as well as the,
in our code.
yeah.
But I was told they came off the state coast. Probably next door, the gas station is sitting there.
Yeah, they did that
Also
remediation,
told
what, a
that-
year ago?
I mean, I guess they'll sell it for $1, but you have to, the town would have to accept responsibility for any, and they wipe away any responsibilities that they had for contamination.
We could find out if it's off the list, right? I mean,
Yeah.
should be able to find that out.
Yeah, Concom should know that too, right? Concom should know that too, right? If it's off the list, yeah.
It's off the list, and then
But there's grant money, what I'm saying is there's grant money available for the town to take certain kinds of actions.
Yeah.
But it would mean typically acquiring and demolition. And
yeah, but you could make a nice park through there to the.
you can make a nice little vest pocket
I mean,
park.
it's taken off the tax roll.
You'd have to build a screen, you're taking it off
library
the
there, is
tax
that what
roll.
We put a skate park in there, Don.
Oh, done. Bob wants to put the library there. He got rid of at the town hall.
And Rick Green told me that a while back, there was someone offering to pay for a bridge over.
The Lions Club.
Can't-
To the town land.
Yeah.
So,
Be a great access to the trails across the street
into the
or
truck.
across the river, yeah.
And since we're putting the crosswalk in there,
Mhm.
that's a nice path down to the park.
So,
All right, so, well, keep us informed on that.
I'm in favor of it, Bob.
Right, well, I did see the note from our highway superintendent that The material has arrived for the crosswalk
Correct.
at the park. They want a
The-
contract to put it in. I
yes,
mean, to
we-
me, that's weather dependent.
To go forward,
Alright.
assuming that the
What's that
weather
on?
will break before too long, and they can do it.
That's gotta be the same one. I don't have a new one. This is private.
They're still on
Yeah.
the list if the test is one.
All right, tie and bond report, floor plan. We got that. Yeah,
Go ahead.
thanks. So there was a request for the tie and bond to look at the utilization of the town hall and see if there was a more efficient way for storage. And to look at, we had a report from 2017, 17, yep. The building structure, thank you, I've got 5 copies. But there was a request from Craig also to let's look more at the bones, the structure, the mechanical, the HVAC, everything about it. And I'm not really sure that that message got across. I didn't really see the presentation by Yvonne as really responsive to what we wanted.
It was just
And I'm
about
not-
the floor plan.
Right, and I'm not questioning, I think she did a nice job based on what she was given. I don't think she was given the right direction.
But I did convey to her after the presentation and some of the issues that were raised, like, why didn't you look at the mechanicals first?
Mhm.
Why didn't you look at the structural needs before we start talking about a floor plan? So she has that information. So,
Right, but I'm also concerned, coming back with where the heck's the library? That was, I think, kind of a large thing to, it went out to the staff meeting and really kind of sprung it on them. When I really think,
sprung it on them 2 weeks before that, too. I said,
okay, well,
I told them I understood from a conversation with Yvonne that they were going to come in with that kind of recommendation.
okay, but I think giving that to them without us being able to look over some potential solution, I mean, you can't just say, look, I'm going,
Kick the
rent out
library
the
out.
bedroom, we're gonna sleep, we didn't think about that yet. So we should have, I think, the full plan together. And I don't even know if that's a direction we're even interested in. Is it look at the third floor, put it on the third floor? So, other comments?
Yeah, I mean, it was a surprise to me that they totally wiped it out of this plan.
Yeah.
We also had feedback from 2 departments unhappy about the floor plan, the Conservation Commission, and today I had a visit from the assessors.
Yeah, I mean, the floor plan is great and all, but that's a major undertaking. It's gonna be very expensive.
Mhm.
The other question I wanted to address, which is this building sustainable? And that's the whole point of the reason I wanted to have a study done.
Right.
What does it look like structurally? Like, I think I saw an email from you that the roof's leaking over here somewhere, right? It's over here. So there's a roof leak, so we have to put a new roof on. It's over there. I'm pointing all around. So there's a roof leak.
Probably all those
Is
places.
the electrical gonna fail soon? Is our furnace gonna go soon,
Mhm.
That wall's pushing out, at a 5-degree shift.
No.
So I
Windows.
had a sense that they're going to come in with a report and a number, and then the selectmen are going to decide, do we want to go to town meeting to get money to salvage this building, or do we want to relocate?
And I don't think, I had mentioned before during the thing, the message we talked about, utilization. I like the idea that we discussed on before. But we're almost at the point where we need to change into an engineering department, where you consolidate Concom, building, planning, zoning, all in a common area, because they're working with the same thing. And I think that reflects Concom's remark, they feel like, the elderly stepchild or something like that, down in the basement.
Yeah.
Not like the other ones are, palaces. But they all should be in a common area because they're working with the same things. And I'd like to see that type of direction. It's hard to do, as Greg said, look at the bones of the building. You've got 4 floors. How do you make that work? So it's just,
And the accounting proposal, I thought was, the office there was very large. And
I just think with what you have here, the needs we have, you may not physically be able to fit all the needs in the square feet we have here. And then to make them accessible, which is, goes back to part of the original concern, just may not be doable. So, hopefully we can retool the message. Craig, is that something, could you work with Bob on that, please?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then we have, there would have to be phasing of 3 large capital projects that are moving forward seemingly at the same time, not only here, but the fire station and the senior center.
The hard thing is, honestly, and I think I said that at the meeting, is the senior center project, I don't want to say it's simple, but to me, it has the clearest path to fulfillment. You know, you have a decent plan coming out to the street. At the last meeting, we also said, hey, there's also a path towards expanding towards the police station.
Yeah.
Either one are very tenable. And the cost, I don't want to throw away dollars like there's something, but they weren't out of sight with what we were talking about. You know, we talked about a potential $2 to $3 million addition to it with some possible, honestly, for the people who lost almost everything during the 2005 shutdown and still have not come back completely and represent a pretty sizable proportion of the town, and they represent 2/3 of this board. Don. I'm speaking to you. Okay. You know, the fire department thing is a huge question. I don't think this board has a clear path forward on that at this point. There's still questions to be answered. You talk about 3 projects. I don't personally consider the sidewalk to be one of them because I think we have that under control. As soon as you show us the money, we're going forward.
So
On you.
let me pose a thought open to debate. In thinking forward next 10, 20, 30 years, the status of, yeah.
Well, you tell us how it works out for you, buddy.
The status of this building, is still in limbo. And, maybe looking at that report was a kind of an eye-opening thing. I think we mentioned 2 weeks ago that we don't need to have the wetland delineation for the senior center, right? So there's room to expand.
Well, what was said is that the police station plan showed a finger of wetland. When I talked to Gary, he said that was actually unmarked.
Mhm.
So the number actually reflects that it is actually open to go that way now.
So my question is, would now be the time to get it in with Ellen and Becky to see if a joint senior center community library thing would be in the realm of possibilities or future planning? Because one if they have a joint space together, they can collaboratively work together. It's a community space at that point. You have a lot of different, clientele of people that would be in and out. One, it would also remove from the equation here, where if we don't act on this building, we know they're set up for the future. And we're not having to worry about that. That's my only thought there.
Right. My thought is that the only way that works is that you say that the wetland expansion works as well. Because you need any expansion, it's going to be the library expansion. If you don't have one expansion, you've done nothing for the senior center.
Correct.
So you'd have to have both.
It hinges on that wetland spot, which I was told wouldn't be an issue 2 weeks ago.
And then you also have to do the parking lot. Right now, I've gone by and the parking lot is full of senior things. And then we'd have to look at some way.
Can't be any worse than this parking lot. Seen this parking lot during the day? Yeah. That's why people park in your front yard.
And given that there's been talk about not staying here and maybe looking at Thornton Burgess, should we not plan to get some kind of analysis of what that would cost?
I don't know if that's actually a possibility, though. It's still under contract by the school department. We can't just say move out. Don said 2 weeks ago that the school system is busting at the seams in Wilbraham. They might need that building. We don't know.
That's more of a, and I think I still heard at the round table, they're still saying population is dropping. It's programs that make them burst at the seams. Whether it's from the state, SE, whatever, it forces them. And utilization, exactly right. That's
think my point was that, Bob was saying, we have these big capital projects. If we deem the townhouse renovation too expensive to move forward on, but we can account for some of that expansion at this senior center, does that free this building up for a potential use for us down the road?
Or you still get into with the other thing hanging over our head. Yay.
Right.
We've been able to kick that down a little bit, but sooner or later, they're coming knocking at the door.
Right.
So,
And we're legally mandated to make the building.
at
fully
some point,
accessible,
right, and they're gonna be,
Exceed, 30% of the
Sure.
value.
so in case you thought we weren't meeting next week, we are.
I don't understand I don't understand this. We started off with getting money to fix the windows in the wall. And somehow we ended up doing it, but looking at changing floor plans and everything. And a lot of those hours, I don't understand the necessity for that, because I don't think their workload will increase. The population of this town is going down, not increasing. I mean, what I would do is, I would move the clerk's office into the auditorium.
Then where would selectmen be?
But what would the library do for programs and stuff? They're probably the biggest user of this space.
They'd have to adjust. I mean, the clerks is the busiest office, so if you want to make space, the clerks is the busiest office, you put it in half of this place here, it's handicap accessible, people come in, and then you have her place.
As long as they don't stand near the wall that's gonna fall in on them.
I just, I mean, you want to play floor plans, but I don't understand why, first of all, let me say, I don't even understand when we're on floor plans, and we started talking all about windows, so.
Well,
Just for the record, I was against the windows.
yeah, me too. Yeah, so I think, unless they're stained glass, I don't know why we're spending $500,000 on windows.
Well, it did say windows and handicap accessibility.
Ah,
So there's a stair up to the windows? Elevator? Yeah. 5 guys that'll bid on that window project at $500,000. They'd love that job. So this has to be a thing. Like Craig, you've said, Bob, Don, we've got big things in front of us. Speaking of fire, what's the next thing on that?
On the fire department?
Right, Jeff
It's coming
is.
up on the
Okay, 22nd,
22nd.
17th, okay.
I put the flyer up.
Yep.
There's one on the back door. What we'll do is we get a little closer is another notification or a robocall.
Mhm.
We'll put it on the website and get it in the newspapers, 2 newspapers.
Ash Wednesday,
And
we'll be
try
down
and,
at Bourbon
Try
Street.
and get a better turnout. I think unfortunately, the first time we had 34 people here.
Yeah.
We had 7 or 8 coming in on Zoom. So
School vacation week, Craig, you being the only parent here, do you think that'll affect any turnout or?
that's a big vacation week. People usually go away on February
Right.
vacation.
Ash Wednesday. I think the key part, we played catch up last time by getting it out to the school. If you're gonna hold that date, that's gotta be out there right now. This week, we have to really push getting notification out there.
we're out
Whether,
there tomorrow.
if you need posters from me, we can print the posters, put them up around town, whatever you need.
I think you make a good point, though. Would it be, is it on the table to move it out a week?
Can you push it to March 1st?
I
Can you talk to Jeff?
And,
Yeah.
I
I don't want to pull it forward. We already talked about not enough notice, so I think,
Well, and you got me thinking about school vacation week.
Right.
This is Ash Wednesday too.
yeah, right. So, big party at Bourbon Street, I think, yeah.
It's the night before.
Is it really? How'd you know that?
Been there, done that.
Okay. So if you could reach out to Jeff, ask him if March 1st is on the table, please. Which will give you more notification. It would make sure people are here that aren't out of town for school break. That would be good. Okay. Good call. Other one?
First one.
Well, have some water.
Did we send out Mr. Sebelia's letter? Yeah.
Yeah, I thought I saw it on the table. I saw it on the table for signing, wasn't it?
We
Okay.
should send a copy to planning and to Jesse, so.
We have we have a notice that Betty Howarth has resigned from the Hampden Historical Commission. We'd like to thank Mrs. Howarth for her service and notify the hundreds of people listening and those in the audience that there's an opening on the Historical Commission. Ed, what are you doing? 2 openings. You heard us? Yeah, really? Come on, you're done with the Scouts, aren't you? So? All right, keep working on them. There's some cookies here, Ted. Okay.
They're good.
We have a license.
We have an entertainment license for Casabella,
And this is inside and outside.
Thursday, Friday, Saturday, 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. indoors, Thursday, 6 to 8:30 outdoors.
I recall in the past, we pushed the earlier thing because Casabella is in a residential area. So although other ones are allowed to go 9 or 10 outside, I mean, that's
Has 8:30 been the
6,
normal?
8:30, yeah, yes, yeah.
No problem.
Second,
All in favor?
aye. Used car license.
All right, so used car license class 2 for Felix Perez, Safe Auto Sales, 484 Main Street. Used car license.
484, is that one of the places in the hardware store, basically? Is he a recurring one?
I think this is one of the
Okay.
recurring, but I think he's the one that operates online, right? If I remember correctly from last year.
Is there a restriction, one car? So is this the guy, you have to have one sign?
There will be one designated spot for a car display. All there. Got him.
Okay. Let's see, Selectmen report.
We already went over DEP, the meeting I had with Dan Hall, Scannick Valley Water District's meeting next week. Fiber? We talked about it with the poll stuff, yeah. I'm good.
And town administrator report. Bob?
Okay, I applied for 2 grants from the Gaming Commission, one for police equipment and training, about 17,000,
Mhm.
and one from a tie and bond to design the Main Street sidewalk. If you recall,
Now,
talked
wasn't that money in the 1.3 that you got
Yeah.
already?
we
Okay.
don't have the 1.3 in hand.
Right, but I mean, that money, not like the gaming commission has been really good at sending out money either, so.
Well, I've been
Right.
trying to get a handle on when the state is going to release the bond funds.
Okay.
And the response you get from the state rep and senator is the new governor, I mean, is
Yeah.
slowing down because of a new governor who has her own priorities. And this came from decisions last fall, and so it's unpredictable when. So I thought if we want to design this thing,
Mhm.
I put in for that. And again, like do a reimbursement, I guess, if we, and at least have it designed, because if we get the money
Mhm.
in late spring or early summer, not enough time to design and actually do construction. We get design done relatively soon in the next couple of months. we happen to get the money, then we can do some construction for the end of the season. We'll see where that goes. I also put in 3 applications for One Stop. $400,000 for the water line, again, shot in the dark. We will have to, and that was simply an expression of interest. To do the full application, I'm going to have a hard estimate from a consultant. Another $75,000 for the master plan. I think it's unlikely that they'll fund that, but I put it in anyway, simply because we've already gotten 75 from them last November. Then I put in $4 million for construction of the fiber optic system.
That's the limit you said, right? 4 million was the limit you could ask for?
It seemed, yeah, I looked at what they were giving out to other communities, and it looked like to ask for more would be foolish.
Were people getting that type of money from them?
Some of the bigger communities.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, but I think we'll get some money from them.
If you don't ask, you don't get.
If you don't ask, you don't get it. Now, we have an issue with conservation agent, and we have an issue with stormwater. And I wanted to talk to the board tonight about trying to put together a new position, which would include a conservation agent and someone to manage stormwater. They are equivalent in many ways. It's dealing with water, and we have had no luck trying to recruit conservation agents. Most recent failure was with Ludlow, where the town administrator was very much in favor of it and on board, and we had, I don't know, 4 or 5 different very good meetings. We were there with an agreement and so forth. And for whatever reason, the selectmen said no. So Ludlow has backed out. And I did talk to Eric Weiss about it at the MMA annual meeting and said, can you find another partner? And he said he would try, but I haven't heard from him. I'm not optimistic that we're going to get this done. And I hear from the Conservation Commission people regularly about the need. So I was wondering if we might want to try and recruit somebody to do both conservation agent work as well as stormwater work, and come up with some kind of combined position.
What
Also
are
check
other
with Long
towns
Meadow.
doing? I saw the article in the reminder, and Don, you probably read the same one, their select board meeting. And they talked about stormwater quite a bit at that meeting, in that last article. You know, what are other towns doing? Are they just holding it into their building/engineering department?
Yes.
It's
being-
DPW.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
In the case of Long Meadow, I talked to Lynn about it. It's the DPW's responsibility. Of course, they have a DPW, a much larger organization
Right.
than, a smaller highway department. And oftentimes in a DPW, you will have an engineering component.
Right now, we job part of the paperwork part out to, and this is really a bigger discussion for another meeting, but we job the paperwork out to Ty and Bond, correct? For X number of thousands of dollars. But they're not going to do the daily work for us, which is what your specialist is. And, I know we've talked about before, is it under somebody else's department? Well, it is as part of like a permit application, yes. What part is being missed then that's not part of the permit? Overseeing the whole thing, compliance, things like that?
Managing
Is that the
overall,
thing?
yes.
That is the only. Hard to believe there's.
I'm not very optimistic that we're going to be successful in getting someone to do that work for us.
Hard to believe there's not
On
somebody
water,
out
on
there just
stormwater, and I'm not
making money on that.
very
Right.
optimistic about.
I'll run a couple workshops, I'll do this. We can't be the only small town with this question. I understand your point, Long Meadow's got a department, but Wales, Wendell, name another small one, you know what I mean? Goshen, what are they doing? Right,
All right, Barry Dayton.
that's my point. What are these other 5,000 to 7,000 people town doing to comply with the MS4 requirements? they've got a 4-person highway department like we do. They've got 1-man building department like we do. Somebody must be doing it.
See what else they're doing. I know that a lot of them just simply ignored the problem. Did very little, because the MS4 pressures came last to
Yeah.
small communities. You know, the pressure on the MS side came to the larger communities and larger towns. Now it's filtering down to
I understand, so they've
smaller
got a
communities.
come to Jesus moment for everybody now. But again, we're not the only people in the group.
No, we're not.
In this problem. Is there a way we can put out, and I know Eva has this type of thing, Pam, you're part of a state group or something. Can we put out that type of message saying, hey, what are you guys doing? You know? Oh, we fund a guy, he does 5 towns, he spends 1 day in each town a month and does all the work for us. Because honestly, this is not something that we're looking for a 40-hour-a-week guy, girl, whatever. I think we should beat the bushes and see what other small towns are doing. Don, Craig, any thoughts?
Ambulance oversight, we've already talked about tonight. Audio I,
I was so confused by that email where they said new website. You know, it said right in the thing, I'm like, what new site?
I'll send you some stuff tomorrow that I got today. They really want the town to upgrade the website,
And I got that, and you said that before, but boy, the way I read the email, like, it's a done deal.
yeah.
You know, it didn't sound like, if you go to the new site, it's like, hey, when your new site? So,
I told them in no uncertain terms. that
yeah,
it
that's
was
what
not a done deal.
that's what my mother said, and all of a sudden the electric bill showed up under a third party. So
What was
they
their,
recorded you saying yes one time, Bob, and you're in trouble.
what was their reasoning for wanting us to upgrade the website? What's wrong with the way it's
I
out?
want to sell,
I think they
sell.
have spent a lot of money doing an upper level website,
Mm-hmm,
and they want to sell it.
So they're pushing it.
yep.
I will send you what they just sent me this afternoon, a town in Texas, and you can take a look at what it's like for the upper level. The problem is, it's expensive. And I'm not sure that it's necessary here.
So we got Audio I on the website. I mean, it's
Audio
already
I,
said and
yeah.
done. We don't
Right,
ignore their emails now?
right. I mean, I've seen they do other towns. I think Munson is also Civic Plus.
They do a lot.
Right, and it's not bad, it's kind of nice, you know, but I haven't heard of complaints. We'll ask the 2 citizens in the room. How do you guys feel about the website? Everything you want is on it? Yeah. I think if you have maybe a little more searching would be better if there was a way to search for things, but you can only put so many one-click things on the front page, and then it's so confusing.
Yeah, but the young people don't have that.
Well, that's why we're putting you on the historical commission, Mr. Kid.
And congratulations.
And Munson doesn't have Audio I.
Geezer.
Well, for the benefit of the public, we now have an enhanced website. The existing one is enhanced to make it more friendly, user-friendly for people with handicaps. First meeting of the Government Study Committee is next week at 5 o'clock, prior to your meeting, prior to this meeting. It's the kickoff. And I'm working on a new MVP grant. I got a meeting tomorrow with the local DEP manager, and we're looking at another grant to do the engineering for the East Main Street Bridge. Again, that number is high, and we'll probably winnow it down to a smaller number.
For DEP? Or-
MVP.
MVP, okay, yeah, there's a DEP. Okay.
We had a meeting with Whip City Fiber on the 1st. We've talked about where we are with them, and also had a PFAS meeting on the 1st.
Mm-hmm.
Been through that. We did a Zoom meeting with Attorney Tom O'Connor to discuss legal action against the Hampden County retirement system.
Quickly, Don, does that really do anything for the town of Hampden? No. Okay, all right, just bringing them to account?
And we had a contact from Dalton Zabersky of the Times asking to meet today, so came in the offices and met with myself and Donna Hatch to talk about the ambulance. He basically wanted background information on town's ambulance service. So there's going to be an article coming out next week, I guess. That's the report. Also, what I've given you, just to eliminate some confusion, is an update on the grants. So the last items on the second page and the items on the third page are new. You'll see that it starts with the one-stop grant for 75, as I mentioned, and another one-stop for 400,000, another one for 4 million, gaming commission for 203, and the MVP that I just mentioned for 400,000.
More tasers. Okay. Anything else to come before the board?
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
Yeah. Under due consideration, you're saying? After due consideration?
I was looking around, make sure nobody raised their hand.
Maybe it was a discussion.
It's a good idea. We want to discuss that
Just look
motion.
back forth, okay, good, there, yeah.
All those in favor?
Can offer a substitute motion.
Aye.
Aye. I'd like to welcome Tad to the Historical Commission. If we could get him sworn in tonight, that'd be great. If nominated, you will not run. If elected, you will not
Are we off
serve.
the air? No. Are we off the air?